Welcome to all. My name's Brett Thelen. I'm the Science Director with the Harris Center for Conservation Education. And I'm really excited to welcome you to tonight's Turtle Talk. So a few words about the Harris Center for those of you who might be new to us. The Harris Center for Conservation Education is a nonprofit organization based in the Monadnock region of Southwest New Hampshire. We help people fall in love with the natural world through land protection, conservation research, and environmental education. I know there's some familiar faces out there. So those of you who are local to us, I hope will be excited to learn that we've now protected more than 25,000 acres of land. Much of that is open for hiking, birding, turtle watching, and other recreation. We coordinate conservation research on our protected lands and throughout the region, including a variety of really fun community science projects. And then really at the heart of everything we do is education for all ages, from babies in backpacks to residents of retirement communities and all points in between. We have more than 100 programs a year for the general public, an incredible calendar. Everything from Zoom talks like this one to film showings to birding outings is it for introductions for the Harris Center. And now it's really my pleasure to introduce tonight's speakers to you. So Dallas Huggins and Drew Stevens from New Hampshire Turtle Rescue, which is a small nonprofit organization. They're based in Nottingham, New Hampshire. They're licensed wildlife rehabilitators, and they work closely with their mentor, Chris Bogard. Did I say her last name right? Yes. She's been rehabilitating turtles for more than 20 years. Their mission at New Hampshire Turtle Rescue is to rescue, rehabilitate, release, and preserve native turtle species through individualized care, public education, outreach, and scientific research in support of New Hampshire's wild turtles. So we are so excited to have them join us to give us an overview of New Hampshire's turtle species and what you can do to help. And then at the tail end, I will be sharing a few ways that you can also share your turtle sightings with the scientific community. So with that, take it away, Dallas and Drew.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you for everybody who is here tonight. It is great to be with you. We will jump right in. So as Brett mentioned, we are licensed wildlife rehabilitators, and we founded New Hampshire Turtle Rescue in early 2022. We're now recognized as a 501c3 nonprofit. We are based in Nottingham, New Hampshire, and we service the entire state of New Hampshire. So any injured turtles, we are your people. And we're focused on the rescue and rehabilitation of all of our native turtle species. To give you some background on turtles and kind of their evolution, turtles have been around a really long time, a lot longer than humans have. And to understand kind of how much so, we have Unatosaurus, which is on the screen, that is estimated to have evolved 260 million years ago, thought to be a very, very early turtle ancestor. And so we'll walk through a couple of these different species and how it evolved over time. But you could see here was Pompilichilles, where you see some of the shortened ribs. You kind of, both of these are terrestrial species as well. And then we start seeing some aquatic species that have these flattened, long flattened ribs, and starting to create that turtle shell that we know so well. Down to Odontochilles, always have a hard time saying all these, which evolved 220 million years ago, where they have that complete plastron at this point, to Proganochilles, which is 210 million years ago, where you have now this complete shell. So their body plan has really remained relatively unchanged over time. They've just had this perfect design that they've just kept going with over time. And to kind of, as a comparison, Homo sapiens, that would be 550,000 years compared to 210 million years for turtles. And just the stark contrast there is crazy. So why we rehabilitate turtles is really that one turtle really truly matters both to their population and to the ecosystem as a whole. But some important life history traits about turtles include that they have delayed reproductive maturity, meaning that they have to reach much higher in age than most species in order to reproduce and make the next generation. They also have very high hatchling and nest mortality rates. It's estimated about 99% mortality rate for hatchlings. So the majority are not going to make it. From the time they're in the nest, you have predators that are extremely adept at finding them, such as skunks and raccoons, to when they actually emerge from the nest, they're about the size of a quarter and everything eats them. So they are just very, very vulnerable in those early days of life. They also don't receive any parental care. So they're really working on their instincts when they are going through life and kind of making it through. So what do they have that makes up for their high mortality rate and delayed reproductive maturity? And that would be longevity. Turtles are incredibly long-lived. And so, well, depending on the species, it can be variable, but they are very long-lived relative to other species. And so it kind of is the balancing factor in all these other aspects of their life history that make it a bit harder for them to rebound from any kind of population declines or anything of that sort. And just to give a kind of comparison of two different evolutionary strategies, we have the gray squirrel, which has a lifespan of 6 to 12 years, more on the side of 6 typically than 12, but they can be a little longer lived. They also don't reach sexual maturity until they are 6 to 12 or 6 to 11 months old. And they do receive parental care in those early days, helping them to kind of make it to adulthood. Compared to turtles, totally different evolutionary plan. They have 40 to 110 years of age is they can live to be 40 to 110 years of age. They reach sexual maturity at closer to anywhere between 5 to 20 plus years of age, and they don't receive any parental care. So as a example of one of these species that we have in natively or in New Hampshire is the Blandings turtle. And a Blandings turtle is actually going to reach sexual maturity at around 14 to 21 years of age. So they have to reach those critical ages in order to even start thinking about reproducing and making the next generation. So that's a really long time to wait. And that's one of the reasons that turtles are so important to keep out in their natural environment, is because the adults are just so important. And they've had all their odds stacked against them throughout time, and they have made it to adulthood. And we want to make sure they stay out there and they can keep making those eggs. Blandings turtles, for instance, they would be over 80 years that they can live. So even if they have to make it to 20 years of age to reproduce, they are going to reproduce throughout their lifetime and have a better chance of another adult making it actually that they hatched. So increases their odds the longer that they are out in the environment. Excuse me. And to go over a little bit more of our turtle species that are in New Hampshire. So first, we have our musk turtle. These are the smallest turtle that we have in New Hampshire, one of the smallest in the world, actually. They are exclusively aquatic. Even when they go to lay their eggs, they are pretty close to the water, whereas our other species that are usually predominantly aquatic typically will travel pretty long distances to lay their eggs. So they are very, very tied to water bodies. They are very, very small little guys. One of the fun facts about them is they often are seen basking in trees. Or I shouldn't say often, that you rarely would come across a musk turtle basking in general, but they are one of the few that actually does that in where they will climb a tree to do so. So pretty impressive.
Another interesting thing to note about the musk turtles is the reason they're called musk turtles is because when they get disturbed or feel threatened, they'll secrete this musky secretion from these glands along the margins of their shells, and that gives them their colloquial name, which is stink pot as well. So they're called the stink pot turtle for that reason.
And actually, a lot of different species, like for instance, garter snakes, they have that same musky scent, but musk turtles get the name for it. And we have our largest species, smallest to largest. This is the snapping turtle. So they tend to inhabit slow-moving, shallow water bodies, but they can have a variety in their habitat. I always like to mention that they are not aggressive, they are defensive. They have a very reduced plastron, so it doesn't cover a whole lot of the bottom of their body, which makes them really, really vulnerable, especially at younger ages. And so because they're so vulnerable, when they are reaching adulthood, they start to snap. They get more and more defensive because that is literally their only defense. When they're out of water, they have no other method to defend themselves. So they tend to be defensive, but it is very understandable because they are just scared. They are actually amazing, sweet, like very calm guys when you have them over time. They also have the largest amount of eggs. A lot of our species don't lay anywhere between 2 to 10 eggs, depending, but they tend to have a lot more. They also are often the ones that you see with the egg shells scattered all about because they have so much, they often get a lot of attention to their nests as well. So that being said, not that all those turtles are making it out or anything. Yeah, and they're big old sweeties. And our Blandings turtle. So Blandings turtles are state endangered. They're actually in the critically endangered category. They're recognizable by this amazing yellow chin that they have. They're so beautiful. They can have sometimes spotting and different marks. It's actually more common in younger Blandings turtles, but when they get older, they can actually be fairly hard for folks to identify because they don't have as characteristics of marks. But that yellow chin, they never lose it. So it's always a good way to know you have a Blandings turtle. They are semi-aquatic, but they spend most of their time in the water. But during the nesting times, like right now, you're going to see females coming out and making their way to those nesting sites. Then they can go fairly far away as well. And they have this really amazing snake-like neck too when they extend it. It's always really interesting to watch them when they're calm and they go to look for food because they'll just kind of snake it out and to get a bite of something. And it's really cool to see. Painted turtles is our next turtle. So these are our most common of the turtles we have in New Hampshire. So when you often see a bunch of turtles basking on a log in the middle of the pond, that is almost always the painted turtle. They tend to bask in groups and they all will just flood to where that sunny spot is. So most of our other species are a lot more private or have different habits. So they're the ones that you see. Occasionally you'll see other species basking with them, but they're the ones that you're seeing in those large groups. They tend to be pretty high energy as well, like relative to our other species. They are, just very, very high energy. And one way you tell the males apart is that they have these really long fingernails and they will use it to woo the female during their courtship. And so they'll put it in her face and they'll wiggle it around and she gets in a sort of trance. And if she, likes them, then they will mate. So yes, they've got the long nails. Let's see.
One thing that sets them apart and the reason that you see them more commonly than many of our other species here in New Hampshire is because they tend to reach reproductive maturity at about 5 years of age, which is one of the youngest or like earliest for turtles in general, but definitely for our native species. So they've got a pretty big benefit going for them there by being able to start reproducing so much more early than, like Dallas said earlier, a Blandings turtle that can take 14, 15, 20 years to start laying eggs.
Yes, definitely. And they're also shorter lived by comparison as well. So kind of just a different strategy there. And here we have our spotted turtles. These are very shy guys. They are one of our smallest turtles. They would be second smallest to the musk turtle when they're full sized. They have this really amazing, unique patterning on their shell. That's a bunch of different spots, but you can actually identify the individuals by that pattern. So for instance, with field surveys, they can use that to actually notice the individuals. So very interesting, and so it looks like a constellation. They're just gorgeous.
Almost like a fingerprint for them.
Yeah, they tend to inhabit more wetlands, similar habitats to our blandings. They are also endangered. They are in rank S2 for our state, so meaning there are few populations and there is a risk of an extinction. So they also are one of our guys that we very badly need to protect. And here we have our wood turtle. So we've got spotted turtles with that amazing, just super smooth shell. And then we've got wood turtles with just this amazing texture that you won't see on any of other turtles in our state. And so they tend to inhabit more streams and rivers, and a little bit different ecosystem than or habitat than some of our other species. They're pretty specialist species.
And it's not just any streams or rivers that they like to inhabit. It's clean, good water quality rivers and, you know, fast moving bodies of water that they like to inhabit. So they're an indicator of good water quality if you have them nearby.
Yes. And another interesting thing about wood turtles is that most of our species in New Hampshire have temperature dependent sex determination, meaning that well, for ours, it's above a certain temperature. They're going to be female when the eggs itself, when it is above a certain temperature that the eggs are incubating in, they will be female, and lower than a certain temperature, it'll be male. Wood turtles are actually the only one of our species that don't exhibit that. And so they don't have actually temperature dependent sexual sex determination.
That's right. It's genetically predetermined when the egg is laid.
Yes. Yeah. They also are semi-aquatic, but they extensively use terrestrial habitat during the summer months. So they actually are our most terrestrial species aside from, well, we'll get to the next one. And a good tie-in to box turtles. These are definitely our most terrestrial species. So they just are terrestrial and use water bodies, whereas the other ones are aquatic and they just use terrestrial land more so. They are extremely long-lived. I didn't say it for the other ones. A lot of them actually in our state are very long-lived, but these guys are actually rank S1 in the critically endangered category with blandings. But they in particular, there are few and far between. There's actually only a couple populations that are known in the state. So actually, if you do ever run across a box turtle, it is very, very important to let New Hampshire Fish and Game know. They're very commonly misidentified, so it very easily could just be another turtle. But if it is, they definitely want to know.
And one of those reasons, or one of the main reasons that there are so few populations of them here in the state is because we are at the northern extent of their range. So the few populations that we have tend to be concentrated along the southern border of New Hampshire with Massachusetts. And in Massachusetts, you would find that they're much more common, especially as you go further south.
And that is the last of our state species. So now, why is it so important that we help all of our state species? Turtles have many unnatural pressures to their populations, so much so that 4 out of 7 of our listed species are, 4 out of 7 of our species are listed species, meaning they are either at risk of extinction or threatened. And so that has to do with a lot of human activities that are kind of leading to that. And so that is everything from habitat loss, most glaringly, because of course if they had the habitat, then they wouldn't be running into our roads and so on. Road mortality is extremely common. That's the majority of patients that we receive are car hits. Also dog and cat predation. So pet predation in general, unnatural predators tend to be a really common one where dogs in particular will often find them when they're in yards. Also disease can spread much more rapidly due to human activities. And so you see a lot of diseases that get just transported globally due to the pet and food trade and so on. And also they are poached as pets, which has the same effect as mortality on the population. So just a lot of things that are affecting them based on, human activities that it is nice when we can be able to mitigate some of that damage. And go in a little bit about how we help New Hampshire Turtle Rescue helps. So more about our wildlife rehab, but I'm going to go a little fast just based on time. So some of the kind of important objectives in our wildlife rehab include education, so being able to spread what we're seeing and kind of the things that are afflicting turtles, as well as how we can be good neighbors. The medical care, which is everything from emergency to longer term medical care, to the just general understanding the natural history and understanding how to best care for the species that is in our facility. Also biosecurity. So a lapse in biosecurity can have dire consequences for the animals that we are trying to protect. So it is really critical that we maintain very strict biosecurity protocols. And by biosecurity, I mean preventing the spread of disease outside of our facility or into the wild. And lastly, release. So it is all for naught if you don't successfully release them. And so this takes a really good understanding of the natural history as well. But some of the things that we are most commonly seeing as far as the reasons that we're admitting patients to our facility is car hits. We also see a lot of incidences with pets, I would say, is probably the next that we often get, is when pets will find, specifically dogs often will find turtles in the yard. Getting caught on a fish hook or lawnmowers, or just lots of things where they're kind of out and about and just, wrong place, wrong time. So all of this begins when they come into our facility with an exam, and it's all so dependent on the injury, what we're doing for the actual medical care. But we have a licensed veterinarian that we are, I guess, don't know if that's redundant, but a veterinarian who we work closely with and who is prescribing medication and so on, that we are administering to the patients as well. And that's going to be totally dependent on the individual. So one of the things sometimes we see when folks will find turtles in this state is sometimes they will go ahead and try to administer some amount of care. But just as a note, this picture, for instance, is using sterile fluids. And so we work in a sterile environment, we have medication, so on, that we're administering, and often it can do a lot of damage when folks will try and administer medical care, which can be really, really specific to turtles. Even other rehabbers, aren't going to know necessarily all the different things that turtles need. So it's really important that they get to a wildlife rehabilitator.
Right. Some aspects of it might seem like they're straightforward, but there are quite a few nuances that, if done improperly, could end up killing the turtle in the long run. So get the turtle, or the wildlife in general, not just turtles, but any wildlife that you find that's injured, get it to a licensed rehabilitator who knows what they're doing, so they can take care of that animal the best way possible.
And they are amazing. Like, there is sometimes folks will ask kind of like how to understand if a turtle is beyond repair. And really they live through such amazing things that we don't have any really, like, they can have paralysis and so on, but even such, it's like they, depending on how the injury is, they may have something that they can actually recover from or not. So really, in general, just getting them to a rehab, or like if you find a turtle on the side of the road, even if it is on the brink of death, it is going to be more comfortable with pain meds in a quiet place than on a loud roadway, So it's generally better. We accept all patients no matter what state they are in. And these are just some before and after photos from our mentor, Chris Bogard, who's tracked some defects over time, where you're seeing initially just these very severe open wounds where you're getting organ exposure to they're open wounds with visceral organ exposure. And so, yet they are still just, you see just over time, you get this healthy granulation tissue, and it never ceases to amaze us what they can heal from. So one of the big situations that we are dealing with often when we receive patients is the fact that if they are female, they may be gravid. So we have to assume every patient that comes into our facility that is female, that she is carrying eggs. And so we have to get every patient radiographed in order to know how many eggs she has, to make sure that she lays every one of her eggs as well, because egg retention is fatal. And so, yeah, so it's really important that we work with her to get her to lay every one of her eggs. Also, or just the process of having those eggs inside her makes her more vulnerable. So we need to get those out in order to properly, have her heal from whatever trauma that she experienced. But nesting season is from May through July. So turtle active season is from April to September. So you'll see them out and about in general, but May through July is the really critical time where we can make a really big difference looking out for them, because that is when the females are out and about and looking for nesting spots. It is when they are traveling much further than they would normally ever travel in order to find these nesting spots. And they are really, really particular about where they nest. So you can actually, realizing I didn't, this amazing video from Gene Erta in Massachusetts of a wood turtle doing their little nesting dance. But yeah, so if they are in your yard and you run across them while they are nesting, you can make a huge difference by leaving them be, because they are so particular about where they nest that if they are forced to move on, it could mean crossing roads, entering yards with dogs. They're infinitely risking themselves when they are continuing on. Instead of just laying the eggs and moving, she'll go right back home.
And I'll add on to that, in the state of New Hampshire, it is illegal between May 15th and July 15th to disturb any of our turtles, not just the 4 listed species, but all 7 of the native turtles that we have in New Hampshire cannot be harassed or messed with in any way between May 15th and July 15th. And that's to protect the nesting turtles and make sure that they actually get a chance there. So that's good to know.
Yes, and they dig a deep cavity to deposit their eggs. So even if you're worried about the spot, like you're worried about the hatchlings when they eventually come out, the care really has to be with the adult because of how high mortality rates are for hatchlings. Like, it's really important that she be left to move on back home, and the baby hatchlings are it is very likely that they will be predated in general, but if they aren't, then they have those strong instincts and they will make it back to the wetlands as well. But yeah, makes a big difference with the adults to leave them be. And I'm going to skip through this, but there are a lot of important aspects to turtle care. And release is really important. I'll just go over really quick. This is really important to understand their history, natural history. And one of the things I want to mention here is just that a lot of times folks will pick up a turtle and know a really good spot for turtles and put that turtle in that spot instead of where they're from. Sometimes we just don't know what all is out there and what kind of water bodies are around. So sometimes they are nearby, even if it doesn't look like it. And they're using those strong instincts, to make it to the, make it back. So it is, sorry, now I'm talking about hatchlings more though. My point being that they are, that it is really important that they stay where they are from, because relocation has been studied in turtles and it's generally unsuccessful. So they're co-evolved with their environment. So they're so tied to their environments that they live in that it's really important that they stay in that spot. Some of our more specialist species, like for instance, wood turtles, you put them next to a pond and, you might have moved them further away from the water body that they would have lived in, and they will not survive in a pond. So just better overall to kind of leave them be. or to, well, of course, to move them across, but we'll get to that. And so now how we all can help. So one of the best ways at this time of year that you can help out our native turtle species is by helping them across the road and helping them navigate our roadways. If you do come across a turtle in the road, you're always going to want to place them just right across the street in the direction they are heading. Because they are very, very aware of where they're going. And so turning them back around, unfortunately, does not do anything, and they'll just turn right back around. They're very, very stubborn. Also keep low to the ground, because they're surprisingly strong, all of the different species, and it can really surprise you how much push power they have. So better overall to not end up injuring them if you lost your grip. And for when you're dealing with most of our native turtle species, you're going to be holding them like a hamburger, kind of upside down. And that's right below their front legs, that you're going to be holding them just circling around the body. They can have sharp nails that can scratch, but generally that is the best way to kind of avoid those nails. Yeah, so that is the majority of our species. Simple, they're usually pretty light. You just pick them up like a little hamburger. But with the snapping turtles, that is the one exception we have. Since snapping turtles can reach their head halfway across their body, you can't pick them up in the middle or you will risk your fingers. So you want to be able to hold them in the back 1/3 of their body. They actually have in their carapace the top shell, as you can see in this photo with with the person holding the snapper. They have like these little handlebars on the back that make it really nice to hold. So you can pick them up in that way. The bottom of the plastron, you can stay towards, the bottom shell, staying towards the back and holding on to, for instance, one hand on the shell and another hand below them can be a really effective method. Also, a great method is to have an object such as a car mat or a towel or something that you have that you can lift them onto.
Even a cardboard box.
Yeah, because you can then take them across the road using that. You'll want to face the direction where they're not facing you, but then you can just drag them all the way across very easily, and that'll be the least effortful version. And two, if you do run across any of these turtles, it's very tempting to take a photo and to share it. Generally, just a special mention of avoiding sharing locations, because our turtle species are very, very sought after in the pet trade. And so it really puts a marker on their back when we do share the location. In fact, even photos can have location metadata that poachers could get to actually find the location. So generally, we like to be cautious, not sharing locations. And if it's anybody, that you're not sure of, one method you can use is taking a screenshot of your phone, because that won't have location metadata. So that's one way to avoid it as well, if you were worried about that. And if you are looking for turtles out on the road, you may come across one that is injured. And so if you do run across a turtle that is injured, the best way that you can help them is to put them in a dry box. It could just be a dry cardboard box, and saving the location right away, because that's going to be the most important piece of information that we can get. And then contacting a licensed wildlife rehabilitator. So New Hampshire Fish and Game can help with finding wildlife rehabilitators. Anybody in the state, we can handle. If it's a turtle, we can. You can call us, and anywhere in the state, and we will work with you. And another option also is Animal Help Now. It's a phone application, and it's really handy because you can look up animals and your location, and where the closest person to respond to a wildlife emergency is. And so it'll show you all your local wildlife rehabilitators local to you. And so you'll be able to easily find. So that's really helpful to have, because you might run across a different species or be in a different state. And so it's very handy to have as well. And I have a little turtle kit down here, which is like if you wanted to make them extra comfortable, one thing you could do is have a little container, like a plastic tote or a cardboard box, put some towels in there, and put a bottled water in there for, you just want to dampen the towel. You never want to transport in water, but just for dampening that towel in the interim, and then some hand sanitizers just for your hands afterwards. And one of the other ways that you can really help our native species, one of the things they're often faced is people will pick them up in the wild. There is both poachers who are picking up like often large numbers. There's also casual collection, which is just where it's common, you run across a turtle and you decide you want to make it a friend at home. Because they are because of all the aspects we've discussed thus far, it is as far as their life history, adults are really important to keep in the wild. And because taking one adult out of that ecosystem, that's a lot of time that has to pass where to get another individual up to the age that to replace that species. So they are. It's just very important to keep them in the wild for many reasons. And it's important to note too that they are wild animals. So while we think of them as more, I don't know, a little different than our hawks and our foxes and our owls and so on, they are just as wild as any of them, and definitely do not want to come home with us. It is very stressful for them, and sometimes hard for us to see their stress, because they're very, both they have the incentive to hide it from us because they think of us as a predator, but also because they are generally hard to kind of understand. They don't have a lot of expression. So anyway, it is definitely something we like to see, keeping our turtles in the wild. And the picture here too is of one of our ambassador turtles that came to us, Augie, who just had insufficient care before. And so this led to metabolic bone disease. So you can see this just very severe deformities that are not uncommon in captivity, because they're just very hard to care for. And so if they, generally, both in the, oh my gosh, no, I'm losing my train of thought. Yeah. Okay. Oh, and yes, if you are ever looking to get a pet turtle, though, we can always connect you with a rescue, because there are many more pet turtles that need a home than have one. And also, equally important to never picking up turtles in the wild is never releasing pet turtles. There's a lot of diseases that go around in captivity, and individuals can be asymptomatic and not have any signs. We've found that for some of our more deadly diseases that just run rampant through populations. We're still actually waiting for test results from this individual shown here, but this was a rapid progression of disease over a very short time, where they passed away shortly after. And this is, I mean, we have suspicions of what disease this may be, but generally there are a number of diseases that can go through these populations of turtles, and a lot of them will affect other species like fish and amphibians as well. And it'll just result in these mass mortalities. So we have to be really careful that we don't bring any of those diseases into our marshes, which could just wipe out a local population. And watching pets outdoors. So how we were talking about nesting season, turtles are going to be out and about in our yards. Well, now they are already out and about. So watching your pets during this time of year, specifically dogs for turtles most commonly, can make a huge difference, because dogs will just see a bone that they can just gnaw away out and chew until there's nothing left. And the photos I'm showing here are very minor, quickly caught injuries that were found. I would not show you what it looks like when you have a turtle that has no shell anymore, but is still alive. It's awful. So it is not something that you want to find, and definitely something that, can just help by when they're out there a little too long, seeing what they're doing. And just some couple notes on further action, supporting land conservation efforts. Of course, the best way to help our native turtles. Turtle-friendly land management can be anything from New Hampshire Fish and Game actually works with landowners to create artificial nesting sites to help females not have to travel as far away when nesting. So that is an amazing way, and we can always connect you with the folks at New Hampshire Fish and Game to if you're interested in that. Also, that can be as simple as just surveying before you mow, because it is lawnmowers are one that commonly affects turtles as well when they're more nesting and kind of in their terrestrial areas. And then joining and supporting your local conservation commission, since conservation commissions will do everything from water testing to actually seeing the like development that's going on in wetlands. So it can be a lot of help to actually even just participate in certain activities or to actually join locally. So I'll pass it over to Brett at this point to go over some of the final things.
Great. Thank you so much to both of you for giving us that overview. So I just wanted to wrap up before we get to our Q&A with a few ways that you can kind of share your observations of wild turtles with the scientific community in service of conservation of these turtles. So there are, depending on what state you're in, there are different websites that exist for sharing wildlife sightings with the state wildlife agencies. And this is really valuable because this is how they have information about where vulnerable populations exist. So for instance, when there might be proposals for development and permits that are coming before them, they can check their database and see if projects might impact a rare species, or including turtles. It's also where they might go when they're looking to do large scale conservation projects. I know that the Northeast is currently, biologists from all these different states are coming together on wood turtle conservation work. And the basis of this is knowing where these species occur in the different states. And a lot of that, some of that comes from professional biologists and professional surveys, and some of that comes from you and me sharing this information with the state. And so in New Hampshire, the way to do that is this website called New Hampshire Wildlife Sightings. It is a website by New Hampshire Fish and Game and UNH Extension. It is a little bit, I have to say it's a little clunky in terms of how to use it. Some of the other sites I'm going to share with you are really user-friendly. This one's a little more challenging. It does require that you create a login. And then every time you find a sighting of an animal that you want to report, you have to define that location as well as you can. And then you have to do a separate a separate entry for the species that you saw. For all of these, the most important information that they need from you are as detailed location information as you can get. You can usually pick it off of a map, as well as a picture of what you saw. And the good thing about turtles is that they are generally easy to take pictures of because they can't run away too fast from you, unlike birds or mammals or even snakes. So New Hampshire Wildlife Sightings in New Hampshire. And I will say, because this particular site is not the most user-friendly site compared to some of the others. If you have to prioritize, I can share that what I do is I don't report every single turtle to New Hampshire Wildlife Sightings myself, but I have kind of two categories of turtles that I do submit to them. The one is rare species. So any of these that are on the list, your wood turtles, I report every single wood turtle that I see to New Hampshire Fish and Game. I've never seen a Blandings or a spotted turtle in the wild because they don't occur in our neck of the woods as frequently. But if I ever do see one, I will share that with New Hampshire Fish and Game if I saw it in New Hampshire. And the other category for me is turtles on roads, and particularly roadkill, because this is a place where we have an opportunity to make a difference. And if my sightings of turtles on roads are combined with all the other sightings that people submit, patterns will start to emerge on the landscape and hotspots can be identified. And these are places where fencing and tunnels and signage and other projects can start to happen, especially coming up. There's a lot of money coming through the federal infrastructure bill, and some of that's going to be able to be used for wildlife crossings. And so if they have years of data from a particularly gnarly site where there is a lot of turtle roadkill happening, that can help them pick that site as a place for some of these mitigation efforts. So if you have limited time or interest, I would say submit your turtle observations in New Hampshire if they're rare species or turtles on roads. And that's the best way, I think, that you can really have an impact in New Hampshire. So if you can go to the next slide, Dallas. Those of you who are across the river in Vermont, the Vermont Herp Atlas is a great spot. This is also, it's an independent nonprofit, but all of their sightings are also shared with the Vermont Wildlife Agency. I don't know of specific turtle projects yet, but I do know that amphibian crossing sightings and amphibian roadkill sightings through this database helped lead to some really incredible amphibian tunnels that help amphibians get under roads. So the Vermont Herp Atlas, and they've got information about data gaps, priority species, and ways to help. And again, this one does not require a login. You just kind of can upload a photo and some information about what you saw and where you saw it. And you know, one thing I'll say about the New Hampshire Fish and Game site that's nice about it is that once you have a login, all of your sightings are saved. So you can go in and look at all of your past sightings, which is helpful. The Vermont site, it's just kind of a one and done. You submit it and you don't see it again, but the biologists see it. The next one, Dallas. In Massachusetts, they have linking landscapes for Massachusetts wildlife. This is specifically focused on roads and how roads impact wildlife. And they have a few projects there, and one of which is specifically looking at turtle road mortality or turtles on roads. So it's not any turtle sighting. They really want turtle sightings on roads. And this project, I think it was launched in 2010. And that very first year, they had a shocking revelation about one particular site that had more than 100 dead turtles reported in a single season. And they sprang into action and got fencing up at that site to keep turtles from moving onto that road. And they were able to reduce roadkill by 90% in a single season. And so that's what sharing your data with state wildlife agencies can do. And, you know, you might not see that many turtles, you might just see one, but over the years, more and more, if we keep reporting them, these patterns might start to emerge. And as Dallas and Drew said, every turtle counts. So these are the three places where your data gets sent directly to state wildlife agencies. They're not viewable by the public, which is important from a, you know, protecting turtles perspective. But there is another site, if you want to be more a part of a community of naturalists, a place where you can report not just turtle observations, but any living species, any living thing, frogs, flowers, fungi, you name it, is iNaturalist. It's a website and also an app, and you do need a login, but you'll be glad you have it. You'll be glad you went through that effort, because it's a really great way to learn what's happening all around you. And even if you don't know what you found, if you know that it's a turtle, but you don't know what kind of turtle, one way to use iNaturalist is to submit your observations. And another way to use it is to look at other people's observations and help them identify the species they've found. So there are people on iNaturalist who just go on there and look at New Hampshire reptiles and help people identify them. And so this is a great tool for kind of building community, learning about the natural world. And there are scientists who will go here and use some of the data from iNaturalist as well. It's not, I don't believe that the state wildlife agencies are looking as closely at iNaturalist as they are at their own websites. So I do think first priority should be reporting rare species and road mortality to the state wildlife agencies. But iNaturalist is growing every day. It's a really great tool. This screenshot just shows, and you can also search and explore. So this screenshot shows, I searched for painted turtle observations in New Hampshire. So there were when I made this slide a couple of weeks ago, there were 914 observations of painted turtles in the state of New Hampshire, reported by 334 different people, and 218 people helped identify them as painted turtles. One thing about iNaturalist that's really important is it's photo-based. You need either a photo or, for a species that makes sounds, a sound recording. So that's great for turtles because they're easily photographable. It's more difficult for birds and some other species. Mammals can be tough too. But yep. Yes, let's go on to the next thing. So Dallas has already talked about this a little bit, but I do want to emphasize that there are dangers in showing the locations of turtle species. And so on iNaturalist, you have an option here around how locations are shared and who they're shared with. Any species that is listed as threatened or endangered will automatically have the geo-privacy obscured. There's kind of three settings. One is public. Everybody sees exactly where this was found down and can zoom in as much as they wish on a map. There's private, which means the only person who sees it is you, the person who submitted it, which means that biologists have no access to it whatsoever. It's kind of good for you wanting to keep track of your own sightings, but no one else will see it. And then there's somewhere in the middle, which is what they call obscured. And that means that they will not show the exact location to anyone, but they'll show a location within approximately 15 square miles or so from the original site. And the little icon on the map will show that it's been obscured, so people will know that this is not a precise location. The value of that is, of course, that the location of these animals is not revealed for people who might be up to no good, but also that people who want to use the data could reach out to you, a state wildlife agency, for instance, or a turtle researcher could potentially reach out and ask you for more information because they can see that you did see a wood turtle. And so there's still an opportunity for them to connect with you around the data. So on iNaturalist, for any vulnerable species, which basically is all of our turtles except maybe snapping turtles, Dallas and Drew can weigh in on that. Maybe it's all of our turtles. I would advocate that for obscuring the locations of those species so that poachers you're not creating a roadmap for poachers. And the next one, if you want, and which is something also that Dallas talked about, but you want to be really careful when sharing your photos to social media or anywhere else. And so what I have in my phone, there's a settings under location settings, you can turn off location settings for your camera. And I just have it turned off all the time because that way I don't have to worry about that metadata that's being embedded in my photo by my phone that says exactly where this picture was taken. The screenshot idea that Dallas mentioned is also great. So, but really think carefully before sharing photos of turtles that are tied to locations anywhere, because you'd be shocked at even our local turtles at how much pressure there is on them for global pet trades. So we want to share information about them with the people who can help them, and we want to keep information about their locations from the people who might be up to no good. So that's my few slides. And then did you have any last things, Dallas, before we go to some questions?
No, I think that, we just, we just had a thank you slide yes, thank you so much to the Harris Center for having us and for everybody showing up tonight. And also special mentions of Chris Bogard, our mentor who is, always, she was over today helping us with turtles. So she's amazing. And Kevin Talbot and Johnny Herrick, who are both have given us photos that we have been able to share. And Kevin's even brought us some turtles. So,
and also
awesome.
to just mention that all of the work that Dallas and I are doing at New Hampshire Turtle Rescue is reactive work, in that we are reacting to situations that are happening with turtles. And the work that places like the Harris Center does in preserving and conserving nature is really the only true solution to giving turtles a chance in the future. What Dallas and I do is just a band-aid. It's preserving their habitat and making sure there's space for them on this planet that really is going to make the difference going forward. And everybody's support in that effort makes all the difference.
That is so well said. Thank you both. We need all of us out here helping our turtles. So we all have our roles to play, and we really appreciate everything that you're doing. We have a few minutes left, so I'm going to go quick to questions. Marcy had a question that has been partially answered, but I think you might have something to say about this, which is about where do pet turtles come from? And if somebody wants a pet turtle, you know, how do they know that they're not getting a wild turtle that's been kidnapped?
So one really amazing way of, if you're ever looking for a pet turtle, is to go to a rescue, because they're just a lot of these shops, like as far as like the Petcos and so on, they're just churning out pets. They have tons of diseases. They're in terrible conditions, and you don't know the origin. Like there's just no way. And if you're dealing with an individual, you very likely did have a wild caught turtle. So the best thing generally is to find a turtle that is in a rescue. Even if you have a specific species that you wanted or had certain requirements, you can always talk to them and try and, you know, keep an eye out for when they're available. But we know personally that there are so many turtles surrendered.
That's right. The supply far outstrips the demand when it comes to pet turtles. And, you know, every pet turtle, you know, at least maybe just only a couple of generations back came from the wild. Since turtles take so long to reproduce, it takes a long time to establish any type of captive population of turtles as well. And so a lot of the times it can be very difficult to even, you know, guarantee that a turtle you're getting from a breeder is coming, you know, not from the wild and is actually captive bred. And, you know, when it comes to turtles, because they're so long lived, and there's not, you know, a super long history of captive populations, there's really no such thing as a domesticated turtle, right? Turtles are always stressed when they're in captivity. Some might not show it as well, but, you know, you're not going to cuddle with a turtle. A turtle's not going to love you. They don't make pets in the same way that, you know, a cat or a dog might.
Yeah. So, but that being said, if you do have a passion for turtles and find them amazing and want them in, you know, your home, working with a rescue, even if that individual was wild caught, it now has no home, and you can make a really big difference to it.
Great, thank you. Stan had an interesting question about wondering about cyanobacteria blooms, and do they affect turtles?
You know, I would assume to some capacity, but I haven't heard turtle specific information on cyanobacteria.
Right. I'm not sure. Yeah.
It would affect their prey.
Bacteria, those are the ones that will, like, you know, wipe out fish population. Are they the ones that deplete the oxygen in the water?
Cyanobacteria also, there's toxins that can affect mammals.
Toxins.
So this is why, you know, your dogs aren't supposed to go in a water body when there is a cyanobacteria bloom, and people shouldn't either, because sometimes there's toxins. I don't know beyond the mammal world.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And we have not dealt with that yet. And I can't say that we've really even heard any stories about that. I hope
that sounds like a good thing then. If you haven't heard about it, it's probably not a big problem. Kara asked about, do turtles lay only one clutch of eggs each season, or do some of them lay multiple clutches?
Yeah, so the painted turtle, for instance, has been documented at having 3 to 4 clutches, actually. Not saying that is common. That would also be very dependent on where you're at. But like, for instance, in southern areas, they're going to have a longer year, of course. So we're probably seeing on the lower end of that, more like 1, 2 tops. But yeah, so painted turtles can definitely do that. And a lot of turtles have the capacity to. It's just when they've researched them, they often find it's 1 to 2 more so.
A lot of our turtles that we have here in New Hampshire are kind of in, you know, parts of their range where they're experiencing more extremes than they do in other parts of the range. So we tend to be kind of on the lower end of some of these, you know, reproductive and other traits.
All right, well, we're a few minutes over, so there's a couple of other questions which I think we've mostly tried to answer in the chat. So I think we'll wrap up now, but we are so grateful for your time and for the incredible work that you're doing on behalf of New Hampshire's turtles. So thank you so much, Dallas and Drew, for being here. And thanks to everyone else for being here too. And check them out, and then come back and join the Harris Center again for more great stuff coming up. And keep your eye out for turtles as you're driving around this spring.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye all.